another dollar. Again, the title is Another Day, Another Dollar. Linda's second icebreaker will focus on her career, where sometimes another day was less than another dollar. Please help me welcome Linda Snyder.
Another day, another dollar. We are human beings, but so often we focus on what we do rather than who we are. Johnny Appleseed was lucky enough to have what he does and who he was be very similar. But a lot of us have jobs and careers that may not necessarily reflect who we are, but they still are part of us. When we see young children, we ask them what they want to be when they grow up, but we really mean, what do you want to do? We don't expect them to say, I want to be kind and loving and generous. We want them to be firemen or policemen or school teachers. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my career, and hopefully from that you'll get some idea about who I am and not just what I do. I remember my first jobs as being things I didn't get paid for. And those were doing dishes and making dinner. I remember being 5 and doing those things, but I'm going to give my child a little bit of leeway and say that maybe I was 8. But I was taught to bad, but I was taught to cook. And I was taught to do dishes, and when you're little, the whole front of you gets wet when you do your dishes. But it was just part of the process. I had a lot of resentment for that for a long time, till I realized when I became a mother, and I had a microwave, and I had a washer and a dryer, what it was like for a woman of my mother's time to try to raise 3 children and keep a house clean and have clothes that all needed to be ironed and try to prepare meals. So I think she did a great job, and I'm pretty much happy I could help. At least I know how to cook. If not well, at least I know how to cook. Now then, about 10, I was charged with babysitting my brother and sister. And my mother went back to work, and on the summers, the rule was that I was 10 and I was supposed to watch the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old. And she was about 3 blocks away, so she could come home if it was necessary. And the only thing my mother told me is, I don't want to read in the paper, working mothers' children die. And so the only thing I told my brother and sister was, don't die and be home before mother is. And being that they were pretty young and didn't have much to do anyway, that wasn't too much of a problem. Now going from there, it became easy to babysit for other people's children, because I hadn't killed my brother and sister, so therefore I must have developed that skill. Now there was no training, no CPR, no what you should do, know that you should get lists of phone numbers and everything. First time I babysat for other people, my mother told me I could charge 10 cents an hour. I babysat for 3 little children. They gave me a $1 bill at the end of the evening, and my mother made me take back change the next day. So you can see, $1 a day would have been a pretty good deal. I started working part-time when I was 16, and then I was still babysitting on weekends, but I was working at a bakery where you got to take home the leftovers, so that wasn't too bad. We started out, you trained at $1 an hour, then it went up to $1.25. And besides selling all the bakery goods, you also had to clean all the shelves when you were done. And then, of course, if you were lucky, you got to go home and make dinner. And so I left that job to go work at Woolworths, because it was 10 cents more an hour. And there, I got to be the cashier. I also got to feed the birds, and in some cases, water the plants. Now that developed a love of pets for me, and I had parakeets for a long time. I now live with other human beings who aren't as wonderful about having bird food spread all over the house, because I never did keep them in their cage once I got them home from Woolworths. And that's where I learned my value was at Woolworths, because if you needed check approval, you were supposed to say check, and nobody ever came. So I learned to say check, and the lady in the back office said that when she saw me go on the register, she took 2 aspirin. She was going to have a headache. So that was my career, and I was having a great time. And when I graduated from high school, I went to work full-time so that I could earn money to go to college. I went to work as a directory assistance operator. I thought, this is a great career, it's free, so it's not a job that would ever go away. Well, good thing I didn't stay in directory assistance. Now they timed your calls there, and we worked with phone books that we flipped. And so I've always been a person that takes my work stress home, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and not know what phone book I was in. I had to get up to go to the bathroom, and I didn't know what phone book I was in so that I could get up. I also found out that you could say direct resistance instead of directory assistance, and that would cover everything. I went from there to a lot of other jobs. I worked for the city of Cleveland and got laid off from that job. I worked in Parks and Recreation, got to do some fun things there. But most recently, I worked 23 years at BP Oil and worked my way up there from customer service into credit and supervision, and then had a terrible, terrible job the last year and a half that I was there. But it turned out it was perfect preparation for the rest of my life, so I'm very grateful that I had it, because it made everything else seem really good. After that, I worked for Goodrich Landing Gear, where I was lucky enough to find out that there were things like files on the computer, and there were directories, and all those things that I had never learned in the time that I was at Ohio and BP. And so for the last 8 years, I have been at American Greetings. And it has been, it uses my creative skills, it uses my math skills, keeps my brain constantly exercised, it's weary. And in many ways, this is the whole customer service thing that I started out with. And I feel like in many ways my career has come full circle. I'm lucky to be employed, I'm lucky to have a job. I've been lucky all my life, and life really has taken me exactly where I needed to go. Now, I am still a human doing, but I do like to take a minute to be a human being. And hopefully today you have learned a little bit about who I am. Mr. Toastmaster.